Today on the petroleum industry bill. Now, it's been on the table, it's been in focus for a while now. It hasn't been passed, and there have been several wranglings, over when it will be passed and why the delay has persisted for so long. Now, of course, we'll also be focusing on the ongoing probe of the downstream oil sector, or the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, where there have been some revelations over subsidy figures, manipulation of some figures, and hoarding of fuel. Now, it's still ongoing and, of course, still a developing story. Now, joining me now is Gabriel Idahosa. He's an economist and CEO of UHY and Company. We're looking at the developing story over this petroleum industry bill and, of course, the ongoing probe. Thank you for being here, Gabriel. Now, I'm sure you're also following this latest developments. It's just how many days into the probe, and we already have some quite interesting revelations so far. Of course, revelation over the manipulation of subsidy figures, which the minister herself has said that, yes, it is indeed true. Now, what were your first thoughts when you heard that?
Well, I think the whole crisis is forcing all these facts to come out. Generally, these things are known to have happened, and that is why the subsidy figures have jumped dramatically from 200 billion to 300 billion to 1.3 billion. It was clear that a lot of that was not for products that were actually being delivered, but were the results of manipulation, because there was this huge subsidy between 65 naira and 140 naira. There was so much opportunity for a lot of people to want to make extra money in that big margin. So from false declaration of importation to manipulation of figures, clearly there were a lot of opportunities to commit these offenses or crimes. And it will always happen where you have a very large difference between what the price of a product is and what you are selling it for.
Now, do you think this particular probe is going to be any different from the ones we've had in the not too distant past? I know that this similar circumstances have brought about this particular probe, but would you think it might be different this time in terms of the outcome or the forthrightness, or in terms of transparency, what we will see in the outcome at the end of the day?
Well, the only difference is that the public, the trade unions, and the civil society organizations are now taking a lot of interest because they see the direct impact. Until the attempt to remove the subsidy, the public will just see it as another thing happening at the assembly. It happens, they write a report, it goes into some files, and nothing happens. But the assembly now knows that everyone has a stake in this one. Everyone can feel it in the pocket when you have to pay much more for petroleum products. So there will be an attempt by the public and by the civil society organizations and the trade union to ensure that something comes out of this.
So in terms of major expectations, what do you think the major expectations are, especially from now that there's so much focus now, everybody wants to see that this thing sees the light of day, or rather the outcome, or perhaps recommendations or any punitive action being taken?
Well, the major expectations are, one, you will begin to put figures to the amount of manipulation that has been going on. It is known that it has been going on, but this probe will come out with figures to show exactly, for example, how much petroleum products really arrive in Nigeria, how much does not arrive and subsidy is collected for, who are the people who have collected it, and what punitive measures should be taken. Those facts will come out because the facts are there. It is now left for government to show the kind of political will they have done with subsidy removal, which is get these people arrested, get them prosecuted based on the facts that come out of this probe.
Now, I know that, yes, you've talked about those, whoever gets mentioned should be brought to book, but in times past, we've known that this whole issue has usually been shrouded in mystery. What's that word I'm looking for? Shrouded in so much mystery, and we don't get a clear picture. But at some point, I would think that some big names will actually may be implicated in the whole process. And we know how the history of how this country is. Sometimes when big names like that are involved, somehow the probe just gets swept under the carpet, or it just doesn't basically see the light of day. Do you think it will be different this time if, by any chance, some big names are involved?
Well, the reason why it will be difficult to be business as usual in this case is that everyone is now feeling it. If you take a case similar to the one you are talking about, Halliburton. Halliburton happened abroad. Nigerians didn't feel the loss in their pockets of the amount of fraud that was committed in the case of Halliburton. So there were these kind of processes, investigations, and so on, and we never heard about Halliburton. But in this case, every Nigerian is feeling it in his pocket. The National Assembly knows that, and you are not going to be able to brush this under the carpet, primarily because you as government you are going to come back at some point to ask for removal of the remaining subsidy. So you are going to have to deal with this issue now as government to show that you have the will to handle the infractions, whoever was responsible, and then justify the request for removing the rest of the subsidy.
Okay, now what are your own expectations from this ongoing probe for the outcome?
First of all, the facts behind the general information will come out. General information has alwaady been out there, that there's a lot of manipulation. There's a lot of over-declaration of supply just to collect subsidy for products not even delivered. That information has been out there. So this probe should come out with facts and figures, identify the beneficiaries who collected these monies, and then have them prosecuted. If that does not come to its conclusion of people being identified and being prosecuted, then the whole probe is a waste of time.
But do you think, let's go forward now. How do you see this all playing out? We can only hope for the utmost transparency and accountability and punitive measures being taken if anybody or some group of people are found culpable at the end of the day.
Yes, it will have to happen because two reasons. One, the government has put its foot forward to say it wants to remove subsidy. If you want to remove subsidy, then you have to show us that you can deal with the issues related to the subsidy. You cannot cover up those who have stolen 1.3 billion trillions and then tell us to remove the rest of the subsidy. So the government has put itself in a position where it must take action. And you see for the first time that the National Assembly, particularly the House of Reps, are now showing interest in passing the PIB. For 2 years, the PIB was under the table, including Nigerians, including members of the House of National Assembly, knew that this bill was very important to Nigeria. But it was kept under the table for the reasons that we now know, that there were vested interests who want to protect their positions in the industry. And this removal of subsidy is part of that issue, that people have made so much money out of the subsidy that they wanted to keep it going. But now that government itself has brought it out as a key government policy that we have to remove the subsidy, the consequence of all those actions are that you have to identify the beneficiaries, deal with them, and then convince Nigerians that they can accept removal of the rest of the subsidy.
Okay, now, as it is, for this PIB to be passed, you think perhaps the federal government will want to get this ongoing probe over and done with first, recommendations, punitive actions, if any, then we can now focus on how we're going to pass the PIB?
No, the PIB is even more urgent than the probe, because you need the PIB to deal with ongoing corruption that is even bigger than removal. Removal of subsidy is only in the downstream of the industry. There are bigger issues in the upstream and midstream, which the PIB addresses. So you need to pass the PIB very quickly and remove layers of corruption, massive layers of corruption in the oil industry at the upstream and midstream levels, which we have not addressed at all.
Okay, I'm looking at some of the components of the Petroleum Industry Bill, the aims and objectives, and you said that it's more urgent, it should be passed to address some of the issues in the ongoing probe, but some of them might actually take a long time. Now, I'm looking at some of the aims and objectives of the PIB: to create new institutions that will govern the operations of the oil industry, transforming existing joint ventures between multinational oil companies and the NNPC, turning the NNPC into a fully capitalized, accountable and profitable oil company. These are not things that will be done in 1 or 2 quarters, or can they?
No, the first thing, you pass a bill, make it a law that says all these things you have said should be done. Once the law is in place, then you begin to implement it. Once the law is passed today, it might take 6 months to restructure NNPC. But you first of all have to pass the law. So because we didn't pass the law 2 years ago, you can't restructure NNPC now. And if you can't restructure NNPC, you cannot deal with the massive corruption at that level.
So it will go on in that period while we're getting the act together over this petroleum industry bill, passing it first, and then some months before, I don't know, 1 or 2 or 3 of the content of it actually take shape.
Actually, if you pass the bill today, in 6 months, by March, if you pass the bill by March, by September, most of that restructuring can be done, because the law will tell you how to restructure it. It will put all the steps. So, for example, PPMC now becomes a separate company, NNPC becomes a PLC, like Shell. These are processes that will take less than 6 months.
Okay, now I do know that while we were debating at some time, when it became a heated debate, that's the petroleum industry bill, some of the oil companies affected, cried out and said that they were not being given a fair deal. Is this also a hurdle we're going to have to cross also at some point? Will we begin to hear their voices also, voices of opposition from the oil companies who feel that some of the contents of the PIB do not benefit them or will not benefit them if implemented?
Well, all the issues of the international oil companies have been addressed instrumentally at various public hearings, various presentations by themselves and the organized private sector. Most of the key issues have been addressed. But we must remember the purpose of the PIB is to get more benefits of the industry for Nigeria. So it's a zero-sum game. The benefits you want to get for Nigeria are going to reduce the privileges that the international oil companies, the IOCs, have enjoyed for a long time, which they don't enjoy in many other countries.
Okay, so basically right now, and I know that's what the federal government is saying, that for a very long time we haven't been getting a fair deal in terms of our joint venture agreement with these oil companies. So why would they grumble if we're going to be going by international best practices where what is considered fair abroad in the West should also be practiced here?
Well, you don't want to lose what you have enjoyed for a long time. It's as simple as that.
Okay.
They don't want to lose it because they are able to get it in a country like Nigeria. But now they are going to lose it. They are not going to leave Nigeria. They will just fight to get as much as possible in the process of the passing of the bill, of their old privileges. But whatever they end up with, they are going to continue.